If there's one thing the LGBT+ community loves, it's flags. Ever since the adoption of Gilbert Baker's 8-colored flag in 1978, the LGBT+ community has built upon this concept by creating new flags, each one taking on different meanings and associations. Sadly, this form of self-expression has become a source of contention more recently, bringing us to the topic of today's video, and that's the bi-inclusive progress flag recently shared by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. But before we discuss that, a quick content warning for the following: bi-erasure, intersex erasure, HIV, racism, misogyny, and Nazis. If you like our work and appreciate the research put into each video, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon. You can also support us by liking, commenting, and sharing this video on social media. Hi there, my name is Ethel Thurston, she, her, they, them, and today we're here to talk about the new bisexual inclusive progress flag, people's reactions to it, and why I think it's important for flags like these to exist. Our story begins on the 31st of March 2024 when the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, tweeted out the following statement. Quote, "On Trans Day of Visibility, we celebrate London's trans community as they strive to live authentically and safely." End quote. Accompanying said statement was a photo of a pride flag flying just outside London City Hall. So a pretty normal affair for this sort of thing. Except, as noticed by a couple of people, the flag in the photo wasn't one of the usual suspects. It wasn't the very popular 6-colour rainbow flag adopted in 1979, nor was it one of the progress flags that have become popular recently. The 2018 version of the progress flag is a version of the 6-colour rainbow flag that has a single triangle on its left side depicting the trans community via the trans flag, those lost to HIV via a black stripe, and LGBT+ people of colour via a brown stripe. It also wasn't the 2021 update, which added intersex people alongside trans people, using the intersex symbol in purple and yellow of their flag. Whilst the design shared by Sadiq Khan did have the 2018 progress flag triangle, it also had a second triangle on the right, this time containing the bisexual flag colours bordered by the same black and brown stripes as the trans flag, effectively mirroring it. Here's a digital copy of the flag I found on DeviantArt. This led a number of people to start complaining about the flag in the quote tweets, with the complaints largely falling into one or two distinct categories. Some, mostly people outside of the LGBT+ community, saw as an extension of so-called wokeness, acting as if they'd always supported gay people and haven't merely come to tolerate them more recently, whilst holding on to their prejudices towards trans, intersex, asexual, and yes, bisexual people. I'm not even going to address those people, as they really aren't worth anybody's time, certainly not mine or yours. Then there were those, including many members within our community, even bisexual people, who think the flag is simply ugly. And you know what? I have to agree. I fall into that second category myself. As a bisexual person, I do think this flag is a lesser flag, aesthetically speaking, especially when compared to the 2021 progress flag, which is what I view to be the current peak design. This is my flag. There are many like it, but this one is mine. So, with my personal preferences made clear, let me shock you by stating that, whilst I may not love this new flag, I still love the fact that this flag exists. It tells me that someone, somewhere, took time out of their day in a capitalist hellscape to come up with a flag that they felt represents them. And, you know what? Taking time to actually look at it as an artist, whilst I do think of it as a messy and flawed design, I can see what they were going for in making it symmetrical. I get the desire, I really do. Symmetry does things for my monkey brain, just not in this instance. Another thing I realised whilst taking a moment to think about this entire situation is the fact that the flag's obscure nature suggests that someone in Sadiq Khan's office chose this flag for personal reasons. This is a pretty niche design. It's not one of the readily available ones sold in most places, meaning it wouldn't surprise me to discover that someone in his office, potentially a bisexual person, chose said flag because they felt like it represented them and went out of their way to get one made to order. And I am all for that. The fact that an LGBT plus person would feel secure enough in Sadiq Khan's office to pick a lesser known design is a thing I appreciate. That's the sort of healthy work environment we should be fighting for. I also find the criticism of this flag in removing intersex people to be a little unfair, considering that, according to Pink News, this is the flag Sadiq Khan has been flying since 2018, a whole 3 years before the intersex inclusive progress flag was even a thing. I even went back and found this photo from 2020, and sure enough, the bisexual triangle is clearly visible, proving this to be the case at least 1 whole year before the intersex inclusive progress flag was created. That's why it's going to be so funny to see reactionaries claim that this is a quote-unquote new flag. That said, are there arguments for an update? Sure. And Sadiq Khan has flown the intersex inclusive progress flag before, so I know his office has access to one. But they usually fly that flag during Pride Month, meaning it's possible that they decided to use an older yet different flag they haven't used in a while for Trans Day of Visibility. Either way, it wasn't chosen as a replacement for the 2021 intersex inclusive progress flag. It's an older flag, but it checks out. But all this leaves the question, why am I defending this flag that I very openly dislike, aesthetically speaking? Well, because both flag making and usage is a form of expression, it's a form of art, and as art, someone choosing to express themselves in one way does not automatically impact or limit your own expression. The only flags I can think of that do that are flags of terror, ones which have been used as hate symbols to subjugate entire groups of people, making said people feel unsafe in its presence, which this is not. This is just an ugly flag, which is a subjective opinion. When I found the 2020 post, one of the first replies I saw was someone asking where they could buy said design because it spoke to them personally. And I love that. An LGBT plus person reached out to the Mayor of London asking where they could buy a pride flag that they liked. That's a sign of good community health, and I will defend it till the day I die. Art, especially queer art, shouldn't be limited through the lens of mass marketing, i.e., what appeals to the most people. If we went by that logic, pride flags would have been banned out of the gate since the mere acknowledgement of our existence was taken as an offense in the late 1970s. Pride flags were designed as a direct challenge to the status quo to announce boldly that we're here, we're queer, get used to it. Because that is quite literally the definition of queerness, to diverge from the social norm, from the majority, meaning it is that difference in which queer pride exists. My pride, your pride, our pride only exists in our celebrated diversity. This is nothing new. When Gilbert Baker first created his rainbow flag, the pink triangle was the most recognized symbol for the LGBT plus community. It was not a symbol we chose for ourselves, at least not originally. It was one forced upon us by the Nazis and allo-cishet endosex society, branding us, marking us as degenerate. Even after we reclaimed it, it still defined us not by who we were, but by what is one of the darkest moments in our shared history, our collective persecution under the Nazis. Gilbert had the artist vision to think of a new way of expressing ourselves as a community, not by our grief and sorrow, but through love, both intimate and emotional, our life and healing, our radiant sunlight and connection to nature, our magic, serenity, and spirit. These were the 8 principles of his original rainbow flag, each represented by one of the 8 stripes. If Gilbert hadn't broken convention, hadn't pushed beyond the classifications forced upon us by the Nazis, the pink triangle may have remained the de facto symbol for our movement, our community. I am glad that Gilbert broke that convention in 1978, just as I am glad that he continued to do so going forward. Gilbert published his own update to the rainbow flag in March of 2017, almost 4 decades after the original. In said update, he added a 9th lavender stripe to his original flag, this time to represent diversity, telling the San Francisco Bay Times that, quote, "There is a lot of sexism and racism in the community," end quote, before yelling about the support LGBT+ women had shown gay men at the peak of the AIDS crisis. That's right, the creator of the rainbow flag edited his own creation decades later, publishing a brand new flag, a flag that was explicitly created to be inclusive of women and LGBT+ people of color a whole year before the Progress flag was created. And while I'm personally hesitant about the 9-stripe flag's appearance, I am nonetheless glad that he fought to make it, not in least because, whilst he talked about his plans for the years to come, how he was looking to take the fight to Trump and the 40th anniversary of his original flag, Gilbert sadly passed away at the end of that very month. This was the last flag he ever created. Yet he died, knowing full well that he had done all he could, and that included reaching out to people othered within the LGBT+ community. And if the creator of the rainbow flag was not only willing but proactive in doing that, who are we to police the flags other people create? Is that what Gilbert would have wanted? I don't think so. I think his actions in life, his self-reflection and evolution, show us a better way. So the next time you see someone use a flag you don't personally like, maybe just take a step back and ask yourself whether their doing so impacts upon you in any way. Unless it's a flag of terror, the answer will almost certainly be no. In which case, trust me, there's enough fabric in the world for all the pride flags people can dream of. So how about we stop trying to destroy those dreams? Though those are just my rather passionate thoughts about the topic as a whole. There were a few ways to approach the matter, such as discussing the problem of bimisia and bi-erasure in the LGBT+ community, but I decided to take a more general and hopefully optimistic approach. I'm sure I'll return to the topic when I'm ready. In the meantime, I'd love to get your thoughts on the matter. How do you feel about the bisexual inclusive progress flag as well as Gilbert's updated 9-stripe flag? Do you agree with how I broke the complaints down into 2 distinct groupings? Do you think that's valid? Are there more? Did you notice something I missed? If so, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you appreciate what we do here and want to help out, please consider becoming one of our wonderful patrons who make our work possible. On that note, we'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Gert Van Voors, Goddess Alita, Hannah Banghart, Marble Wings, Sosh Daniels, Flynn, and Higgins Siegel. And for myself, Adita and Levi, take care now.